திடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிறை நுதலும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிலமை திறம் வியந்த செயல் மறந்து வாழ்த்ததுமே வாழ்த்ததுமே வாழ்த்ததுமே.
Thank you, ACL team. It is with immense pleasure that we welcome you all to this exciting special edition of TNtalk. Today, we have come together to share insights, embrace new ideas, and embark on a journey of knowledge and inspiration. On behalf of the Directorate of Public Libraries, we extend a heartfelt welcome to our esteemed guests, respected speakers, and enthusiastic audience. Today, we are privileged to hear from two extraordinary minds. We are delighted to welcome Dr. Venkatraman Sadanand, a rare fusion of an engineer, economist, neurosurgeon, and humanitarian who has redefined the medical frontiers. And we are delighted to welcome Dr. ARULALAN Thanigachalam, a distinguished atmospheric scientist who has enhanced India's weather prediction capabilities, saving lives with groundbreaking cyclone forecasts. Together, they stand at the forefront of science, innovation, and public service. Their work is a testament to science that truly saves lives. We welcome Mr. S. Vijayan, Vice President of South Chennai Tamil Nadu Science Forum. We welcome Dr. S. Kamakshi, Chief Librarian and Information Officer of ACL. We welcome the Anna Centenary Library team and the wonderful audience. Now it is time for the promotional video of TNtalk. Thank you for the wonderful promo. TNtalk. TNtalk is a forum dedicated to sharing powerful ideas, insightful discussions, and transformative experiences. It brings together thought leaders, industry experts, change makers, and passionate individuals who believe in the power of storytelling, knowledge, and meaningful conversations. Whether it's about business, technology, personal growth, social change, or creative innovations, TNtalk provides a space where voices matter and ideas can drive impact. It is my privilege to introduce Dr. Venkatraman Sadanand to all of you. Dr. Venkatraman Sadanand has an unparalleled mastery of diverse fields, and he has carved a unique path as an engineer, economist, neurosurgeon, researcher, and humanitarian, leaving a lasting impact on the science and society. He earned his BTech in electrical engineering from IIT Madras, and later he pursued an MS and PhD in economics at Caltech, specializing in game theory and economic competition. After a successful academic career as a professor of economics, he followed his true calling, medicine. He completed his MD at the University of Toronto and specialized in pediatric neurosurgery and epilepsy. Dr. Sadanand is a pioneer in brain-computer interfaces, brain tumor biology, and 3D brain mapping. He operates and teaches in Canada, India, and the USA, while mentoring future neurosurgeons. As CEO of House Calls Now Incorporated, he integrates technology with healthcare. His humanitarian efforts include free medical camps and surgeries worldwide. Honored by IIT Madras, Dr. Sadanand's relentless contribution to science, medicine, and society continue to inspire and transform lives globally. Audience, please put your hands together and welcome him. Now, I call upon Dr. Venkatraman Sadanand, who will enlighten us about the transformative power of cross-discipline collaboration. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you. Thank you. Here? You want me to be?
You can stand there, sir, at the same time.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for the kind introduction. And I'm very grateful to Dr. Kamachi, Dr. Vijayan, and the group that has organized the TN talks. I actually went through a few of those talks, and they were simply amazing, very inspiring, and I am not sure I'll measure up to that level, but I'd like to give it a shot. I want to begin with a verse from the Taittiriya Upanishad for a specific reason that I'll state later on. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahe, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The reason I'm saying this, and I want to be sure that I don't make any errors, so I'm going to read the translation out from Ramakrishna Maram. May Brahman protect us together. May he nourish us together. May we work with energy together. May our study be vigorous and effective. May we not hate each other. Om, peace, peace, peace. The essence of this verse, as you can tell from the translation as well, is the togetherness. To be able to see the world as one. And that is very important, as I shall show moving forward. When we look at the world today, we are often concerned about the state at which we find ourselves and this world. There's a lot of divisiveness, and there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of jealousiness, there's a lot of hatred. Do we think that this state of the world is the equilibrium? Is this what we can look forward to for eons to come? Or is it the case that this is unstable and that the world will go towards a state where there is cooperation, collaboration, where we think of the world as one and all of us humans together as one? So then we are going to transition from a world which is divisive in every aspect. There are political differences that divide us, religious differences that divide us, academic differences that divide us, languages that divide us, race that divides us. What is it that we can find that does not divide us? And that's not an easy question to answer. That's a despicable state for humanity to be in. And the question we should ask ourselves is this how we want to live? Is this the world we want to leave behind for our children? But when we look at the world as a set of transactions, as the current system seems to be envisaging the world, then those set of transactions, can you imagine some transactions that would bring us all together for the benefit of humanity and for posterity? Those are the questions we seek to answer. And I think the answer to those questions lies in two things. One is a terminology I'm going to define and give you an example. It's emergence. And the second is a terminology called Pareto optimality or Pareto efficiency. And I'll define and clarify the importance of these two concepts. The first one is about how sometimes when we work together as a group, something comes out of it. There is an outcome that no individual on their own could have even imagined that it can happen or exist. I'll give you a very simple example. So my focus is on the brain and how it functions. And I can, for example, tell you that this movement of my right arm, where it originated, which area of the brain, and how the neurons took the signal down from there through some neural relays, if you will, and from those relays it goes down through the spinal cord. Exactly, I know the path that has come and which muscle moved and how this happened. Right? But something baffles me. Who gave the thought that this is what I want to demonstrate and do? How did that thought arise? And, even our scriptures in the Kenopanishad, they talk about the eye behind the eye, the ear behind the ear, and so on, where this thought or consciousness or something that seems to evade our understanding must have an explanation. It cannot just pop out of the blue. And as I was thinking about this, one of the fortunate things that is amazingly being taught in the campus across in IIT, where I studied, is not just about subject matter. It's not about just the mathematics or the physics or the equations. Yes, those are important. But that is knowledge, not education. knowledge is to make a living. Education is for life. And what happens down the street in IIT Madras is something wonderful that I learned. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of thought that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And as I was visiting the institute, I noticed that in the guest house where I was living, you have a beautiful environment of scientists from different parts of the world in different fields, and we sit there for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, and we are always talking about ideas that each of us is trying to explain to someone else. So I was sitting there with this thought in my mind, and along came a gentleman who sat on that table, and he's sitting here now. And so I was telling this to Professor Bhaskaran, and he has written about this. He has talked about this with a physics Nobel laureate while he was in Princeton with a guy called Phil Anderson, about that perhaps there's something about thought and consciousness that we need to explain. And once that happens, the rest of the pathway is just mechanical. There's nothing, or electromechanical, there's nothing really surprising about that discovery. And he told me about this concept called emergence. Now, this is a concept that has perhaps first been talked about by Aristotle, and then, several people. In fact, probably the person who made it the most advancement in that thinking, in that line, would be a mathematician called Turing, and my own, the person that I admire very much, John von Neumann, who's also a mathematician. And what these guys were thinking about was, can I build a machine that can build a machine, which can build another machine? And none of the successive generations of machines are worse off than the first one. So in each thing, you're either producing the same level of knowledge and intelligence or better. But the question was, how can this get better? Because for this robot to produce another robot which can be better, we require some kind of knowledge this robot should have about a better possibility. How does that happen? And they were pondering over this, and von Neumann came up with something called, he called it different, but later on the concept of emergence came out of this. And eventually in the late 60s and in 1970, a person called John Conway published his first thought about this concept, and he proposed a thing called a game of life. Simple concept where there is a vast checkerboard, okay? Huge two-dimensional, but length breadth is unlimited as you would like. And this checkerboard, you can start off by putting some dots that occupy the square of the checkerboard, okay, as you would like. And then once you have this initial state of the checkerboard, then you define some rules. There are only 4 rules that he had. And using those 4 rules on these dots on the checkerboard, those dots change to some other pattern based on these 4 rules. In that state, apply the same rules again, and those dots now change to another form, to another state. And this subsequent changes in the state happen automatically, just the application of these simple rules. And sometimes after many, many iterations, you find that there is no change. It has come to a state which doesn't change. You apply the rule, it's the same state. You apply the rule again, it's the same state. Right? We were talking about states of the world, and that's where I'm getting to. So you apply the rule, it's the same state. Then there's another possibility where you apply the rule after many iterations, it comes to a state where the next time it becomes something else, then comes back to this. It becomes something else and comes back to this. So it's an oscillation, goes back and forth. Or there is something where after a certain time it just explodes into, they called it pulsar, but it explodes into something else, a different pattern. And the last and the fourth kind they had was one where it looks like a spaceship and then it keeps moving in that huge checkerboard. The patterns keep moving. All you're doing is applying these 4 rules. That's all you're doing. And you can find changes in states. So there are properties. Imagine a spaceship that is moving. I never started with that to begin with. But applying these rules repeatedly has resulted in something I did not imagine. And that concept is the emergence, where you find that society as a whole may be able to produce something or do something that they did not think is possible or even imagine it. It's not just about putting, one person has good strength in his arms and the other person has good strength in his legs, and together they combine to form a soccer team. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that emerges that you did not even think about or envisage that possibility. And suddenly the theory of relativity comes. Maybe something is going on in Einstein's mind. And so the concept of emergence is not subject to just the game of life or states of the world, but it can be expanded to art. Or what he does. Society, how it evolves. And the concept of emergence has a lot of ideas embedded in it that we need to borrow and think about. The very idea to borrow an idea that will lead to something I did not even imagine was because of cross-collaboration with a physicist. I am not a physicist. But when I reached across the table to a physicist, suddenly ideas start coming. So when we think about science, and you want science to progress, cross or interdisciplinary collaboration is essential. It is essential. It changes your thinking. It allows you the freedom to think across boundaries. And when you cross over and shake hands with someone in another domain, you find that you never want to have boundaries. You don't want to live in a silo, in a cylinder, locked up, interacting only with your specialists, everybody praising each other, and living in a domain which is just restricted, walled off, while there's an entire beautiful garden out there that you could talk about, talk with, consult with, and suddenly ideas will emerge. That emergence is being suppressed when you don't do that. And you will be in an echo chamber, patting your back, thinking about concepts and ideas which may not evolve the society that you're in as much as cross-cultural pollination or cross-disciplinary pollination. That will take you further because it allows for this possibility of emergence. So that's one idea about, is this the state of world we want to be in? That's how I started. And before that, the chanting and the prayer from Taittiriya Upanishads talked about being together and the togetherness, which eventually leads us to this question, is emergence good? And emergence is good, because you cannot be worse off, but there's a chance you might be better off. And most importantly, once this cross-disciplinary collaboration happens in the scientific field, if it happens in politics across countries, if it happens in art, then we find that our mind expands, our thinking expands, and we don't want anymore to have barriers. You'll find once you remove these barriers, how wonderful life can be, that you'll never again want barriers. You don't need a rule to say don't have barriers. You yourself will see the futility of having a barrier. And that's how the world changes. It changes because we grow and we think and we evolve by looking across us, across the existing barriers, and realizing the futility of having this barrier. We can both be better off by just crossing over. And that concept of emergence in the scientific literature is something I'm beginning to see more and more significant. The advances we can make will be remarkable, because now you have thinking across disciplines about a single problem. There are different ways to approach the problem, and we can look into that. And maybe solutions will evolve and emerge out of this that we could never have thought about before. So that's the first concept. The second one is called Pareto optimal, or Pareto efficiency, or Pareto improvements. So there was a guy, Wilfredo Pareto, who came up with this idea that in society, we want to be in a state that is efficient allocation of resources. And what does that mean? What does efficient mean? It should be such that there is no individual in that society or a country in the world, an individual in that society, who can improve himself and his gains without decreasing someone else's. So it is a state which is called Pareto efficient because you have achieved something by which no individual can be better off without making someone else worse off. Now, you can make yourself better off by keeping them stable, same, that's okay. That's an improvement, so it's called Pareto improvement. Or you make yourself better off and improve the lot of the whole group, that's a Pareto improvement. But if by making yourself better off, you make someone worse off, that is not Pareto improvement. And this concept has some significance, some importance, because in the world, when we think about policies that are economic or political, the question that often comes up is this efficient? Is this action going to hurt us? So take, for example, the issue of tariffs. And so country A says, I'm in a state where I'm going to raise tariffs. And these are, so there's a country B out there, country A is here, I'm going to put import tariffs. Okay? And now, what is happening here? We were in a state before, and now we are moving to a state of the world where country A, by imposing this tariff, is making the product more expensive in country A, so the people here are not as well off as they were before. Supposing there was no full employment in that existing state, then over here perhaps employment will go up, because now you're preventing that foreign guy from coming in. So you have better employment, but more expensive products, and I don't know how that will balance out. You have to actually compute it. But there is a good possibility that you're going to hurt the guys here. Okay, so there's no way this is a Pareto improvement in this stage, at this time. If there was unemployment or a big amount of unemployment, perhaps this will be a Pareto improvement. What about the other guy? Well, the other state had a lot of employment, a lot of people producing these cars or widgets, and now their demand for the product has gone down because the price has gone up. And if the demand for the product has gone down, the factories are producing less, there'll be more unemployment, there'll be more social network that has to save those people. And so they're worse off. So what you have done by doing this tariff raising, if there is full employment on both sides, is to make yourself worse off, make them worse off. In no way is this a Pareto agreement. It's not an improvement at all. So we have to think rationally about our actions and what we do. And there is the other scenario where I raise the tariffs, the other person says, well, I'm going to raise my tariffs. This is very much childish, but this is real. They'll say, I'm going to raise tariffs too. So you put 25% on me, I'll put 25% on you. And this guy says, so really? I'm going to put 250% on you. Then the other guy says, oh, I'm going to match that. And, you know, it's not that there is no end to this. There is an end, which is destruction, one of those mad situations, mutually assured destruction. And hopefully we won't come to that. And it may well be possible, but that some of these threats are empty threats, because it is hurting one person. So if I put my tariffs upon the country outside, I'm going to hurt myself. Is that threat credible? Right? When I have full employment in my country, and I raise tariffs, imports from another country, that's going to hurt me. Is that credible? Why would I do something that hurts me? Right? So that's not rational. So this concept of Pareto improvement and Pareto optimality or Pareto efficiency is a very important concept when we think about social choice. That means choice that a society makes. Think about now the field of research and development. When we think about research, we think about these silos. In my field, in one field, we sit down and start working on making improvements in that field, and we can only go so far. But there is a Pareto improvement that can be made, and that is me stepping out of my silo and talking to another person who's from a different field and proposing my problem to them, and perhaps a solution would come out that is wonderful for me and them. That's a Pareto improvement. So the cross-disciplinary engagement makes both fields better off. IIT Madras has, I think it's now, this is the second batch of students, started a new program called its Department of Medical Sciences and Technology. They have an undergraduate program, they have master's and PhD, and this is a unique program, the only one in India, and there are only 2 programs in the world. And in this unique program, the curriculum has about 50% of the course content is engineering and 50% is actual medicine. These people learn anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and there are doctors from medical colleges who come and teach them. So they are sort of straddling 2 fields, medicine and engineering, and this is clinical medicine and engineering. That will lead to emergence of new devices, new products, new drugs, new technologies. And the hope is the emergence will be much more powerful than what we are doing in our individual silos as doctors or engineers. And in fact, that these, what will emerge, which we can't even, by definition of the concept of emergence, we cannot even imagine, that will come out of this. And the world awaits eagerly to see what these students will do. There's already a lot of interest from doctors across the country wanting to come and do a PhD program in this department, and there are, of course, undergraduates who are brilliant who have joined this program, and a couple of them are now going for a visit as a visiting student in labs in Harvard University. So you've seen that within 2 years this department is picking up. Why? Because we find time and time again that staying in our silos without looking across at other disciplines doesn't get us far. We make errors, we make little improvements in what we are doing, but they're all minor perturbations. They are not huge, big magnitude developments in the field. It's like if I have a car, I'm driving this car, and suddenly there's a rattle, rattle, rattle sound, and I take it to the mechanic, and the mechanic says, "Sir, no problem, there's a screw which is loose over there, I'll tighten it." So he tightens that screw. Then I go with the car, go around a little bit, go over some mountains and hills and stones and rocks and potholes, and I come back and there's again that same noise. And I take it back to the mechanic and he says, "No problem, sir, don't worry, I'll put a second screw." So he puts another screw. Now there are 2 screws that are tightening and holding this panel, and then the panel starts buckling. It can't take the load of the screws. They have to tighten it quite a bit to stop that rattle, and as they do it, the panel buckles. So there's a structural issue over there. So that is silo. That is just thinking about the problem, your problem, and innovation. You can say, "I did this. This is the screw to put in this location." And then I publish something saying, that's what we should do when you hear this sound. I'm just giving a light example, but that is R&D in a silo. But when we step back and look at that process and look at other departments, we can go as far back as the design department in the company and talk to them and tell them, hey, there's this thing happening. I've been putting multiple screws, and now that panel has buckled, and the problem is not gone. And the guy says, oh yeah, we can fix that. And the way to fix it is ... And whatever they propose in the design stage changes. And they make that change in design of this so that there's no panel that needs to be attached, but it's all one uni-panel. That happens much upstream in that process. And that is cross-disciplinary interaction, collaboration within a company, within a single company. When we talk about management strategies or we talk about new companies, you remember I told you the world is very divisive, and we don't want to live in this world, which is divisive. We want the world to go to a state which is not divisive. And this divisiveness goes into management. What is the key word in management today? Disruption. Why do you want disruption? You want creativity. You want innovation. These words may get you your seed money, but they're not going to improve the welfare of society. Until we start thinking creatively, until we start thinking about humans as one, together, like the prayer that I started with. Unless we think of ourselves as one together, the improvement will always happen at the cost of someone else. Our thinking has to change. It's not just the actions, our thinking. To say that to cross the boundary and cross-collaborate across discipline will improve all of us, that requires a change in thought. It is not disruption that makes you a great businessman, but it is collaboration, creativity, and innovation that makes you a great businessman. And if I had the money to invest in a business, that's what I would look for. So I want to conclude. I know I probably exceeded the time limit, but I just want to conclude very briefly by saying that with time and with proper thought and with cross-disciplinary collaboration in every field of human endeavor, if we pursue that path and view humanity as one, then the state we are in today is temporary. And as they say, this too shall pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful talk about cross-discipline collaboration. We got insights about Pareto efficiency and improvement, by means of which there is a win-win situation on both sides, which will ultimately lead to better collaboration, innovation, and quality of products and services. We also came to know about the concept of emergence, which simply means that by crossing the boundaries set up, we can make the world a better place for us and everyone living in it. Thank you so much, sir.
Is there any,
Now it is time to introduce our second speaker. We are honored to introduce Dr. ARULALAN Thanigachalam, an eminent atmospheric scientist and expert in numerical weather prediction and cyclone forecasting. Holding a PhD from IIT Delhi in 2024, he has dedicated over a decade to enhancing India's meteorological science as a scientist at IMD. He has played a key role in accuracy forecasting 14 cyclones from 2021 to 2024, improving disaster response and saving lives. His innovation, Mausamgram, launched by the Vice President of India in 2024, provides critical weather insights to the public. With over 17 research papers in leading journals and numerous accolades, including IMD's Best Employee Award in 2024 and the Young Scientist Award, TropMet 2024, Dr. ARULALAN is a driving force in modern meteorology. His contributions continue to shape weather forecasting, ensuring greater preparedness against extreme weathers. Now, Dr. ARULALAN will talk to us about assessing the role of anthropogenic climate change to the recent Indian hot waves, insights and future projection. The stage is all yours, sir.
Hello. Yeah. I thank TNtalk organizers. Also, I also thank to the previous talk, Dr. Venkat. He mentioned that the importance of interdisciplinary in everywhere, like especially in the academic. Like I'm also one of the example came from interdisciplinary. Like I did BSc Physics, then MCA. When I applied together, then I pursued MTech in Atmosphere and Oceanic Science, then further PhD in Climate Change. So today I'll be talking about the heat waves, especially over the India under the climate change. Also, the most important thing is like assessment of the recent 3 years. I would say like how the heat waves was contributed because of the anthropogenic, like the human, we people made it worse, right? So we all know about that heat waves in India, like it kills more than 2,000 people in 2015, like, right? And even that IPCC, that's an inter-government panel on climate change, mentioned that it warns for the severe heat, severity of all the extreme events in the India, including the heat waves, and also it warns the intensification of such extreme events, including the heat waves under the global climate change. We all know that National Disaster Management Authority has published that deaths due to the heat waves in India from 1999 to till the recent years, it has like more than 24,000 deaths occurred due to the heat waves. And this is the second highest mortality after the cyclone in India, right? So how heat wave is important to us? Like we are all people like sitting inside, or many people working outside were directly exposed to the sun rays, right? So this is like if you are talking about health, that also directly influenced by heat wave, and many mortality used to happen. And if you're talking about power outage, like if you are using more warmer, then we used to make more air coolers and then require more power outage. That also involves most of the cost from the all the people. And transport, so we have to stick to the transport, like that also involves most economy, and schools used to shut down, especially in the Northwest India during the peak heat waves, or the workers used to change the times, and outdoor workers, they should not work during the peak time of the day. And agriculture, it is decreasing the wheat crops yields, and environment, water crisis. So all things are matters, and all of them like making worse due to the heat wave. And how much vulnerable it is. Like India has the second largest total exposure of vulnerable people to heat wave days, and the trend has been increasing since 2006. Also, the heat wave accounted for about 20% of the mortality from the extreme weather events between 2001 to 2014, and that is due to the heat wave, and since also it's increasing. And then upon this, I just want to convey that United Nations on Climate Change brought that Paris Agreement in 2015, end of the, December. So many people, many countries, like nearly 196 countries came together, and then they were agreed together to reduce the global climate change or global temperature under the plus 1.5 degrees Celsius, right? And then we were targeting below 2 degree warmer, 2 degree, which is above the pre-industrial conditions levels. And also emission targets like the CO2, whatever we are making it should be peak by 2025 and then drop by 43% by 2030, so that we can limit the global temperature under plus 1.5 degree by 2030, right? Which was projected in 2015. We were targeting maximum peak of CO2 by 2015. So at 2025, that's where we are standing today, and then drop the 43%, so that 2030 it can reach plus 1.5 degree global. That was the target in 2015. But as on today, we already reached plus 1.5 degree warming world. Like we were much faster, we were emitting much faster, right? So what is, I'm talking about plus 1.5 degree. What is that plus 1.5 degree of what? Like X is what? Suppose this is the pre-industrial condition levels, right? Where there is no industrialization happened in 18th century, like 1850 to 1900. This is the pre-industrial condition. That is the average temperature of the Earth, like both the pole and tropical, including ocean and including the land. All the temperature, if I'm adding together, that was the temperature like 13.68 degrees Celsius in any day if you are taking. If due to that anthropogenic industrialization, that temperature has increased like nearly like a plus 1.5 degree of this value, like 13.68 degree. Now we reach 15.23 degrees Celsius in the last year, 2024. So WMO confirms that in 2016, that was the very warmest year on record, and that was about plus 1.1 degree above pre-industrial era, right? Then the next year, again it says that that the World Meteorological Organization confirms that 2019 as the second hottest year in the world. Then again 2020 was saying that that was three warmest year on record. Then again 2021, it is saying that 7 warmest year on record, right? Then on 2022, it says that 50% chances of the global temperature temporarily reaching plus 1.5 degree threshold in the next 5 years. 2022, WMO says that there are 50% chances in the next 5 years that we will reach the plus 1.5 degrees Celsius, right? But 2024, it was like assessment of 2023, it says that we are again reaching the climate record. And 2024 WMO confirms that again we already reached the plus 1.55 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level, right? So though we are predicting, WMO says that we are about to reach and giving warnings, but we are already reached. So what about India? So India also finally confirms that 2024 as the hottest year ever recorded since 1901. And as per the India, we are reaching plus 0.65 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level, or I would say like it's a long-term mean from 1991 to 2020. And this was the hottest year since 1901. So here I'm going to discuss about the results or what we assessed, like attribution of 2022 early spring heat waves in India and Pakistan and the climate change. So what we studied, it was dry winter. So it was subsequently it was a dry heat wave during 2022. So at the early, like it was like in the March itself, we started to feel like more heat wave over that Pakistan and then India, which is marked in the blue color. And first to second, like week-wise, I organized it here. In the end of the week, like end of the April, it was peaking more than 44 degrees Celsius over that region. Even it started around 34 degrees Celsius in the 1st of the March itself. So we thought to study, okay, the World Weather Attribution community started to assess why it has happened. Then we started to look at the trend from 1979 to 2022. That also shows very positive trend in two different observations, like IMD observation as well as the CPCA observations. Since these together gives that a better, like a positive trend over these regions, then we started to study. We choose this, the blue marked region, to cover, study both India and Pakistan heat waves. And then we choose like daily maximum temperature over the most affected region as a study variable. And we confirmed that it was a dry winter in the previous 2 months. The precipitation anomaly also projected here, which shows that very much like nearly 150% deviation from its normal, right? So there is no moisture, so it started to feel like an early heat wave. Here this B figure shows that again March to April mean of daily maximum temperature anomaly. And the bigger one panel shows that how it happened on the day like 2022, March to April, mean daily maximum temperature also shows like everywhere more than 40 degrees Celsius within that region. So much less rainfall observed in the winter, so obviously we got the dry heat wave. So then we started to utilize many climate models which is available publicly, and we started to understand what is the return period of that observed event. Here I'm shows that return period with Tmax maximum temperature. In 2022, that was the maximum temperature for the 2 months average over that study region, 38 degrees Celsius. To get that return period, in our climate change, the recent influenced, which is shown in that the centralized red one, that shows 1 in 110 year, right? So in 1 in 110 year, we are getting that 38 point, that observed temperature, which is observed in 2022 for the entire study region, which is including India and Pakistan. Whereas, if it is pre-industrial level, that would be like 1 in 20,000 year, right? So we people, like a human influence, made it happen like in 1 in 100 years, such a event. And whereas the same would have been occurred in the pre-industrial condition, 1 in 20,000 year or more than that. So we made it more faster reactivity. This is, I'm little more science I'm talking, but I try to summarize very quickly in a layman language. We used 2 set of observation and 2 set of statistical distribution, that's a Gaussian and then Gamble evaluation value. And it says, it all confirms that, and then 2 different time period, it all confirms that return period of 2022 event is like 1 in 100 year approximately, right? And also the temperature changes, that intensity changes from the pre-industrial level to the reaching 2022, that is approximately 1 degree. Also, how much time it is increased, like how many times compared to the pre-industrial level to the current 2022 warmer climate, how much time it is increased. Also, how many times it will increase in the future. So we compared the +2 degree warmer climate scenarios versus the present, and that also confirms like 8 to 15 times we are likely to increase in the future under the +2 degree warmer world. That to get such a kind of heat wave, we are increasing 8 to 15 times in future. Also, how much hotter it will be, like it will be 1 to 1 plus 5 degree warmer than the current scenario, right? So that was the 2022 assessment. Then in 2023, the immediate next year, we faced like a humid heat wave. 2022 was a dry heat wave, and 23 was humid heat wave, which is when we are mixing with the temperature mixing with the moisture, we will feel like more temperature than the normal dry heat wave. So that is the power of moisture or humidity. that we used to call it as a heat index in science, right? So extreme heat in the South Asia in April 2023, and that also largely driven by the climate change. Especially this is covered over the many parts of the Bangladesh, India, Thailand, and other South Asian regions. So here I'm just presenting only about the India. So here we choose the one particular day, like of 20th April 2023. Here I'm showing that heat index value, not the heat maximum temperature. It's just a combination of humidity, relative humidity, and then Tmax. That gives, like, you can see that the blue color region, which I'm showing like more than 55 to 60 degrees Celsius. When you are adding maximum temperature with the relative humidity, it will build up the heat index value, how a human can feel inside the temperature. That is the called heat index. And we just omitted that rain shading area because it was less moisture. So other than that, this entire region has been taken into study. So how much, like, when we are converting that heat index to the relative, to the human body, it gives like a danger level most of the region where it is shown in the yellow color. To study this, what we did, we used a 4-day consecutive maximum heat index from 17th to 20th April 2023, and then we tried to assess this to the, under the climate change study. So here I'll just like summarize, like I would like to say that how to get the probability ratio. It gives that how many times it is changed in the past to current climate scenario, and then from current to the future. It says that at least to get that heat index increase in likelihood of such occur 1 in 30 times. Like we are increasing 30 times higher in the higher over the India and Bangladesh due to the human-induced climate change. So this kind of scenario, this kind of high index, high heat index, we increased 30 times compared to the pre-industrial level. At the same time, the chances of occurrence once in a 5 year, every 5 year, this kind of event may likely to occur over the India and Bangladesh region. And also, it is about 2 degrees hotter in the heat index. It was not happened in the previous pre-industrial conditions. So that was a 2023 condition. Like 2022 was the dry heat wave, 2023 was a wet heat wave, right? Again, what about 2024, the last year? Last year also, we studied. It also gives like a record-breaking event. So it's like every year, like World Weather Attribution community is saying that this is the very hottest year, and this is like we increased due to the human-induced climate change. So this time also, last year also, we studied that this entire South Asia, we took the mean maximum temperature for the April month. And what it says that it gives the result of 45 times higher than the pre-industrial condition levels. And also it's a 0.85 degrees Celsius hotter than the pre-industrial conditions levels. So this was consistent with the previous two attribution study, right? So every year we are saying this is the hottest year, this is the hottest year, like hottest year record ever. So it's a keep on happening. So if this is the current scenario, right, how it will change in the future? How likely to change in the future scenario, like where we are reaching plus 1.5 degree already we reached, and what happens in the plus 2 degree warmer world? So we studied this, how it will change. I'm just showing the results of this paper. To identify this, we adapted methodology to identify what is the heat wave. So we used one of the paper reference to define what is the heat wave. It shows, it is just in a layman, I kept it here to understand, suppose that Tmax is greater than 39 degrees Celsius and Tmin is greater than 90th percentile. That shows the hot day category, whereas that the center orange shows that the criteria like more than 95th percentile, and then anomaly should be greater than 3.5 degrees Celsius, or it should be greater than 44 degrees Celsius. Whereas the severe heat wave shows like more than 99th percentile, also anomaly should be more than 5.5, or it should be greater than 46 degrees Celsius. What we did is we splitted this into isolated manner, like it contains only heat wave, or only hot day, or heat wave, or severe heat wave category to understand much more better. We made it as non-overlapping events to study to carry our study. Yeah, here I'm showing the results like from 1951 to 2015. IMD's observed maximum temperature. The first row shows like hot day only category and then heat wave only category, also severe heat wave only category. Here I'm putting the results of average of annual mean duration in terms of days. It shows that this 65 years data shows that the odd day category on any given day, like average of annual event day, it is giving like more than 2 days, whereas the heat wave only category is more than 4 days. Also, severe heat wave contains mixture of both, like 2 to 4 days. What about the trend? If I'm looking into the trend, the bottom panel shows that the decreasing trend over the central India. The hot days has been decreased in the central India, whereas the southeast India and the northwest India, it shows that a positive trend. Like it is keep on increasing from 1951. Why it is decreased? It may be, it is migrated to heat wave category. Here the heat wave category clearly shows that it is an increasing trend. Hot day only category has been upgraded to the heat wave, so that heat wave trend is becoming more and more, whereas hot day has been showing declining trend. Also over this northeast region, that shows that still a declining trend over the heat wave category, also over the severe heat wave category. This can be explained, whereas the increasing trend can be explained due to the less observed aerosol optical depth, which is shown here in 4 different satellite observatory, confirms that over that same period, it was very less aerosols. Aerosol tend to cool down the temperature. So since it's a less aerosol, there is no possibility of cooling down the maximum temperature. So the northwest region shows that very higher warming trend over the past so many years. Whereas the northeast region also shows that very high aerosol, sulfate aerosol especially, which was observed, that also during the observed period from 2005 to 2016, which is shown here, drastic change in the more sulfate aerosols. So which confirms that sulfate aerosols tend to reduce the temperature. So in the northeast region shows that declining trend in heat wave, also the severe heat wave category. To understand this, how it will change in the future, we used a climate model projection called HAPPY. That's a half a degree additional prognosis and projected impacts. It is having 3 different experiments, namely historical for the 10-year period, 2006 to 2015, and then plus 1.5 degree future, and also plus 2 degree future. So all the models having more than 100 ensembles for that same similar 10-year period. So we studied upon these models. So also we did some bias correction which match with the IMD observation in the historical simulation using empirical quantile mapping. The similar correction also applied to the future. After the assessment of bias correction, everything, what we found is that like IMD observation and all the other 5 models, all of them having 100 ensemble models, are almost similar. Statistically also we compared, which is shown in the last panel, which is called Taylor diagram, that gives correlation coefficient for the heat wave, hot day and heat wave, severe heat wave, or more than 0.95 correlation coefficients. Also, it is much closer to the observation in terms of both the root mean square error and then standard deviation. After confirming this, okay, that the models are pretty much match with the observation for the historical time period, then we are assessing the future scenarios. Here I list out a month-wise, April, May, June, July, for the heat wave or severe heat wave category, using 500 ensembles for the 10 years during March, April, May, June, July. The first row shows the historical, second row shows the plus 1.5 degree future, and the last row shows the plus 2 degree future. Here we are showing the probability of heat event days. Since we are having more than 500 ensembles in each scenarios, I can get the probability, right? So the probability shows that if you are taking any day compared to historical to plus 2 degree future or plus 1.2 degree future, it shows like a very warming or the higher probability when we are going to the future scenarios. Say, for example, in April month itself, it shows that in plus 2 degree future, the probability to get heat wave or severe heat wave category, it is much, much higher compared to the historical. Similarly, in the May month it shows like the central India, northwest India gives that a much better, higher probability. The plus 1.5 degree also much higher compared to the plus 1.5 degree in the plus 2 degree warming world. So it gives alarm like we are increasing the trend or very likely to get the more probability to get more affected heat wave or severe heat wave category. Whereas that was the like a monthly scale. So here I'm showcasing daily, like a number of days. If I'm taking 3 consecutive days, what is the probability to get in the future? Or if I'm talking about 5 consecutive days event of heat waves, what is the probability or how many times it will increase in the future? To understand that, here I'm shows that a probability ratio rather than simple probability ratio between the plus 1.5 degree future and to the historical probability. It's just like ratio between 2 probability. It gives that how much risk ratio, which is called how much time it is the risk higher than the historical. So to get a warming world, I mean the probability of heat waves or severe heat waves 3 consecutive days or 5 consecutive days, it says that like if you are comparing the result shows like more than 2 to 5 times higher for the 3 to 5 consecutive days events. If I'm talking about 9 days or 7 to 9 consecutive days, the number of times is increased like more than 10 to 30 times. So for shorter period, like say 3 to 5 days or 2 to 10 times higher in the plus 1.5 degree, also in the plus 2 degree warming world, whereas 7 to 9 days consecutive days longer event for the heat wave, it is increases like 10 to 30 times compared to the historical. Also, when I'm dividing probability, if I'm dividing it by 0, it is becoming infinity, right? So when I'm dividing this probability ratio with historical, there is no such event for 7 consecutive days or 9 consecutive days. So when I'm dividing it, I'm getting the infinity, which is shown in the purple color, where it was not observed in the historical period, but in future scenario, it is likely to occur more. So this is the region where the new regions, which was not experienced in the past or in the historical, as a 7 or 9 consecutive days severe heat wave category, that are more likely to occur in the new regions, which is shown in the purple color. So we'll be getting more likely to expand the area of heat wave or severe heat wave, observing where it was more likely to occur in the future. So new regions will likely to affect. So this is my final slide, which I'd like to little more explain about how likely to occur. So we split it into 4 categories, like Northwest India and Northeast region, and then Southeast region, also the overall India. So here also I'm saying, just putting together observation and plus 1 degree future and plus 2 degree future, also the historical, to understand how this frequency and the duration will play a matter. Let me explain in a simple term. Say, for example, here the x-axis shows the duration in terms of days, y-axis shows the frequency in all the grid cells, which is taken from the Northwest India. Say, for example, if I'm taking 30 consecutive days heat wave or severe heat wave category, that is like a 0.01, that's a frequency. If I'm inverse it, that will become period, that 1 in 100 year, right? To such a scenario, 30 consecutive days heat wave or severe heat wave, the same thing would have occur uh, the probability for the same probability or same frequency in the plus 1.5 degree future, that will become 40 days. Whereas in for the same scenario, for the same frequency, in plus 2 degree future, that will become 50 days, right? So this is the like a typical example which I'm explaining. If you are fixing the frequency, then the number of duration is increasing in the future. Like in historical, it says 30 days, whereas for the same frequency, in plus 1.5 degree future, it says 40 days, 40 consecutive days heat wave or severe heat wave. Whereas in plus 2 degree warmer world, it will be much higher, like a 50 consecutive days we'll be experiencing the similar heat wave or severe heat wave category. Suppose if I'm fixing number of days, then how much frequency likely to occur in the future? If I'm fixing 30 days, like if I want to study, like I'm fixing 30 consecutive days of heat wave or severe heat wave category in the historical, then how much fast in the frequency or how higher the frequency will likely to get in the future. Say for example, here I'll be getting, since it's a 0.01, it will become 1 in 100 year event. But whereas in plus 1.5 degree future, that will become 0.1 frequency, which is like 1 in 10 year event. Every 10 year will be getting that kind of event. And in the plus 2 degree future, that will be like every 5 year event. So this is the overall results I'm putting together. So I just want to summarize that how this has been increased, like in April 2022 heat wave that occurred over the India and Bangladesh, India and Pakistan, which was the dry heat wave, and that also human-caused climate change made that 1 degree hotter in the current that was happened in the 2022 compared to the pre-industrial condition, and also it's or expected to become more common, like 8 to 15 times higher, and also more hotter, like 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to the which was observed in the 2022 under the future plus 2 degree warmer world. In 2023, which was heat index, like a more wet, due to moisture, it was a wet heat wave that observed over the India and Bangladesh. That also like 30 times higher compared to the pre-industrial level, pre-industrial conditions, and also the 20%, like once in every 5 years, it is likely to occur in the future. And 2024, last year, April mean temperature also confirms that over the South Asian region, it is 45 times more likely to happen due to the human caused, and also 0.85 degrees Celsius higher than the pre-industrial level. And about that, the final conclusion, from 1951 to 2015, most regions shows a decreasing hot day, whereas also it shows that increasing heat waves, because that a hot day becoming heat waves, that has been already explained. And also the frequency and duration of shorter heat waves are more likely to occur like 2 to 10 times higher in the future. And also the longer heat event, it will be like 7 to 9 consecutive days or more, 10 to 30 times higher compared to the historical in the plus 2 degree warming world. And also more probability likely to occur over the June and July, which will has more moisture, so we'll be facing more heat index. Because June, July is where monsoon is in full swing, and heat wave also likely to occur, we'll be getting more heat index, or the feeling temperature would be much, much higher than the what we actually feeling that temperature. And finally, very high relative frequency at the longer duration or larger area fraction, nearly like 100% area of fractions, or likely to get like more like 3 times higher in the plus 1.5 degree and 5 times higher in the plus 2 degree future compared to the historical simulations. And the final thing I just want to say is that it will never increase the temperature in the future, rather the duration and the area will be increased more. That's the final conclusion which I was not explained in the slides. And what is the policy? How the policy is playing matter? High resolution climate data is required to develop localized climate knowledge and to guide the adaptation policies using the existing tools. Also, to boost the climate science in the vulnerable regions, we need to strengthen the climate research in developing countries which are already facing severe impacts like heat waves in India. And the need to close the gap between the science and adaptation policy. We need to address the lack of actionable climate science as a critical funding gaps, right, through global initiatives. And building a local capacity is one of the main key role, playing major role here. Empower the local efforts to generate and use the climate knowledge for effective adaptation. In India, that NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, also the State Development Management Authority, are taking heat action plans since 2015 across many village and city level, which is reduced for the recent heat waves mortality. That we should really appreciate that. And finally, both global and regional policies matter. And the final concluding, which I want to say, that WMO Secretary mentioned that in 2024, warming doesn't mean that Paris Agreement breached. He just confirmed that we need more stronger climate action. I would like to say thank you.
You to That was a comprehensive and wonderful talk about climate change with special emphasis on heat waves. The researched compilation of the presentation revealed his alarming observations and findings about heat waves and its devastating effect. May I call upon Dr. Venkatraman Sadanand on the stage for the question and answer session? So, audience, it is question answer time. If you have a question, please raise your hand and the mic will be given to you. And we have our speakers to answer all your questions. You can even ask the question in Tamil.
I have a question.
Okay, sir. Let us have it.
So first of all, I want to congratulate you on this amazing work that you've been doing, and an excellent talk that's opened my eyes. I really admire the work that you're doing, and I cannot imagine someone not being moved or touched by this to make changes in our industrial complex, the productions that we do. I just wanted to sort of get your opinion on how we can bring back people who have left the Paris Agreement, how we can bring them back. Now, what you have shown is amazing, and I'm assuming that there is similar data for other countries as well. And it would be wonderful for you to make the same observations in other countries. And I think a lot of people in countries that have walked away from the Paris Agreement think that it's not their problem. And that is wrong. It is their problem. And I think this kind of data in those countries will help a lot to say that you are being hurt. Whether you believe in climate change or not, you are being hurt. And I think that if you can publish something, I think it will be very helpful. I've also noticed that since I was talking about tariffs, when I'm country B and there's country A, and country A is putting tariffs on my products, that raises the price of my product in that country A. So the demand goes down. My unemployment goes up. I get hurt. There is another way also. The tariff is one way. The other way is for that country, instead of putting a tariff on my goods, they can increase my cost. How? They can do things to me that make it difficult for me to produce products, that make it hard for me or very costly for me to maintain the system, the air purification and air conditioning and climate control within my country to be able to produce something. The costs go up. Why? Because you're not doing your part. The other country doesn't even have to put tariffs. It can just say, I'll walk away from the Paris Accord, pollute the hell out of this world, and that's going to affect my costs. So there is a punitive action that is being taken by not agreeing to the Paris Agreement. So I wanted to know, in your opinion, is there a way to bring back people to the table?
That's a very difficult scenario which is currently happening. We all know that who committed initially and then left over very recently. So, like in my view, like already the World Weather Attribution community, which is just volunteer driven by the many scientists among the world, are working each and every event, not only heat wave, all the events like cold wave, extreme flood, across the world, not limited to India, across the world, the people are studying rapidly and then publishing the results so that it can reach the media and media can speak and then people can raise the concern about what is happening due to the climate change. So just because one supreme country has left this Paris Agreement doesn't mean that other has to also leave the Paris Agreement. But we all have to stick together so that the maturity may reach the leader who left the agreement, they may come back. So they are all educated people, but it's just one single leader is taking decision that like I don't want to be there because they are thinking they are away from Earth, but Earth is a single home to all the living beings, not only to the human, right? It's belong to all the living beings. So if one place, if you're affecting due to more pollute or more industrialization, that will affect entire Earth. It's just not like it is happening localized. Where whatever happens localized, that will affect in other place. Like in our next research is going on already about to publish the teleconnection and how playing major role in Indian heat waves, which is happening over the other area. Like, so due to this teleconnection, everything's happening globally, all of them interlinked together. So the leader should understand like it is just not like I'm sitting alone and I'm safer, right? So that maturity has to reach them so that at least the next leader may come back again. It has happened that previous leaders who were agreed upon, like more than 196 countries that time agreed, that was the first ever happened in the historical moment. All the countries come together and want to bring down the global Earth by less than 1.5 degrees Celsius and by 2030, but in 2024 itself we already reached. So that's the thing they should understand. I mean, at a higher level they can communicate. Maybe in the next 5 years, let us see the next leader may come back.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, this is a common problem it's called externalities. That is, that something that is being done by me is affecting someone else and not affecting me as much, and I don't see that impact. Now, what it sometimes leads to is something called a free rider problem, where all these countries who are part or signatories of the Paris Agreement, and I was one of them, and then I'm thinking, yeah, this is a serious problem, but I'll step out of the agreement. I'll do what I want to do. And you guys, it's pretty scary. So do something to reduce the pollution. Do something. Look at the heat wave. Do something. What they do will benefit me. But I'm not part of the agreement. So this called a free rider. That means the guy is just taking the train for free. And we need to prevent that. And part of these agreements that are there, at some point we cannot just rely on the good nature of people, which is there. We are fundamentally one, as I said. But I think people like Dr. ARULALAN will be able to show the world the right path, that you will also be hurt. You cannot be a free rider. You will be hurt if you step out of this agreement.
Yeah, so like I'm not the single person, like me, many greatest scientists are working together. So we hope, certainly, the thing is, what I want to point it out, we are discussing about we are developing countries, but though those countries are already developed, though who made it more pollutant to the earth, and but they already reached in the developed countries, still we are developing, and then in the name of, as you mentioned, like more taxation, we are still trying to come up, but we are the one who sufferer. Like we are also one of the who sufferer, like entire earth is getting sufferer, right? So ultimately we should reduce the global warming, and that's the only way to reduce the warming scenarios.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, I would like to know, on individual to reduce all these effects.
Like we all know that from childhood we are studying plant more trees. That's the only way every single person can make workable solution. Like at least every human or every living person can plant one tree that may reduce the temperature when we are going through the road. At least we can switch off the AC in the car. At least small amount of CO2 can be reduced. Small amount of energy can be reduced, so that at least our next generation can live at their comfort zone. Even we are unable to live in this era, in this year. We used to say that in those days the climate was very nice, but here every year we are facing more hot and hot at the early before the summer itself. So that we are realizing that we should convey to our child and grandchilds what is the importance of what we, as a single human, without much effort, what can be done. Just plant the tree. Just for few years we need to pour the tree, then that will help us to make more greenery. That's the only way. That's the only way at regional scale can be done.
Thank you, sir.
I have another question, sorry, to follow up. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
An important point that ARULALAN made about planting trees. It has been suggested that we celebrate birthdays. So our child is born, so first birthday, second birthday, and so on. So if everybody decides to plant the number of years that is crossing plants, like I am crossing 76, if I plant 76 trees, the world will be very different from 20 years from now. So it's a very good idea. Please add that you plant trees on the birthday, and there is enough space available and it's not expensive. I can give more details about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have a couple of questions to both speakers. Can I go ahead, Anas?
Yes, sir.
Sir, so your talk is very much interesting on emergence. So the Science Forum has already had a lecture on emergence. No, first time, no, it is talking about the specific subject and deal with the emergence on the specific area. Now you are applying the concept of emergence to the cross-discipline. Is there any study on the effect of emergence on cross-discipline ideas, particularly on philosophy of science? Anyone work on that?
Not to my knowledge. I think that's a wonderful area to work with. I don't know how much we really understand emergence, or whether emergence is something that we say when we keep on thinking, and then, it's like Brahman. We come to a point where we don't understand when we say this is emergence. I'm not sure about that. But yes, I think, and I have seen in my life, the way ideas can be generated through cross-pollination, through cross-disciplinary collaboration. And I've seen that in others as well. concepts that are built up, products that are developed, for example, in Apple and Google. If you visit their offices, their factories, there's free movement of people from different departments, and they try, and it's not like the designers are in one place and the chip guys are in one place and the marketing guys are in one place. They're all talking to each other, moving around. That's what makes this the most valuable company in the world. So I think this, I mean, even in where I studied in the US, in Caltech, we used to have master keys, every student. And, we could enter people's office, and I can go sit down, I can go to Richard Feynman's office, I can knock on his door, I can sit down and talk to him about economics, I can talk and he'll give me some ideas. So the ability to cross-collaborate is indeed encouraged in places that I have been to, and I find that has been a tremendous influence in my thinking. And that's the reason that where this emergence concept comes up. Things that neither me nor the other person could have thought of on their own.
Thank you, sir. So one question to Dr. ARULALAN. So you said about the hot days and hot wave. Now, how do you define it in terms of meteorological terms? What is the difference between hot days and heat wave? Is it related to temperature or the sense of comfort the human beings are felt?
The beginning of my slide I showed what is the definition to define hot day or heat wave. That was for the gridded data set, not what IMD is following. IMD is following little bit different criteria, but is based on station level observation, not the average of 100 by 100 square kilometer area observation. It's just station level observation. So as per our terminology, it has to be, we have to follow set of the rules. It should be greater than, should be 4.5 degrees Celsius from the anomaly. The anomaly is from the long-term mean. Especially in the recent days, we upgraded to 1991 to 2020. That long-term average on any particular day is above that average, like more than 4.5 degrees Celsius, then we used to declare it as a heat wave. Also, to declare heat wave, we have to follow certain other criteria, like it should be 2 consecutive days. Already yesterday heat wave observed, and today also likely to observe, then only we'll declare it as a heat wave. On second day only we'll declare it as a heat wave, because it's a wave. It's just not single day it is becoming hot. So hot day means just on single day it is very much high temperature, where the threshold is exceeding, whereas heat wave is continuously happening consecutive days. It should be consecutive, and mostly spatially also it is widespread. So at least like a 2 stations should be realized that kind of very heat wave. Then only we are declaring it as a heat wave. Severe heat wave, again it is much higher threshold, which you can easily access in the internet, those criteria.
So do you have any study on the heat waves on the surface of the sea rather than, so you show something on the land mass?
Yes, that is called marine heat wave. Many people already, many oceanographers, especially from community from Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, located at the Pune, working on that marine heat waves. Marine heat waves has a different threshold and different criteria. Especially there you will feel like more heat index, because on the ocean you are already having more moisture and then more temperature. The fishermen or whoever living on that ocean, they'll feel like a more higher temperature rather than in the land. So that kind of study also, warning also being issued regularly, marine heat waves from IMD as well as INCOIS. Also, one of our, even my group, my friends and myself published also how the Indian Ocean is changed due to the anthropogenic event. In the Indian Ocean from last 100 years, we are studying and attributing to the warming world due to the GHG, how it is increased, the sea surface temperatures increased. So everything is playing a role. Like, since I'm standing in land, so I don't need to worry about ocean. It is not like that. If you are increasing one place, that will affect entire Earth. So one event will likely to cause the other event. So if we are increasing temperature, what will happen? Like again, more warmer sea surface, that will get like a more intense cyclone, right? Then, So if I'm getting more heat wave, then again I'll get more intense cyclone, then more flood. So all the extremes events keep on, we are accumulating or increasing the threshold. So that's the thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There is a kind of market solution to pollution and warming. So when I first went to the US, I forgot how many years ago, but when I first went there, I went to a city where the university is, and I was told, you know, out there are mountains, and I couldn't even see them. There was no way I believed that there are mountains there. And you know, when the pollution goes down, you see a mountain emerging, no pun intended. But you suddenly realize that this pollution level is tremendous. The heat that was coming from just the blanket of gray gas overlying us was tremendous. So what did they do? So they created a market to pollute. So remember I mentioned to you about this problem called externalities, which is, in Tamil it's like, "Yanakennachu," it's your problem, right? That's the tendency that we get, and you know, people pollute. So the first thing they did was to identify what is the relative contribution to the heat maps from each source. How much is cars on the road causing that? How much of that is due to factories, glass factories, steel factories, etc.? How much of that is due to farming habits which are not right? So relative contributions were computed. The next thing they did, and this is remarkable, is they created a market for licenses to pollute. So you want to produce a car and sell it to people that pollutes this earth, go ahead, but you have to buy a permit to pollute. You want to produce more cars, you need more permits. And there is a market for that. And there may be another car manufacturer whose car has zero pollution. So he has all these permits sitting with him that he can sell to the other guy who wants to pollute. So the market decides what the price of that product will be per unit of pollution. And the other company has got a choice. They can either buy more permit and pollute, or they can say, no, I'm going to put pollution abatement technology. The total amount of pollution is governed by the government. They decide we don't want any more pollution more than this amount, and that's the end. And you guys trade these permits and decide how much to pollute. What this does is it internalizes the cost of what I mentioned to you called externalities. The factory that pollutes the river and the river goes downstream and kills someone, the factory doesn't care. But if I put a limit on the factory about how much they can pollute, and if they want to pollute more and they have to buy these permits to pollute more, then it costs them money to pollute. When it starts hurting your pocket and costs you money, you shape up. The prime example of this is Tesla. It's a company whose the magic number there, the biggest source of revenues for that company is from these permits, because their cars produce zero. It's not from the sale of cars. It's from these permits, the sale of permits. So you can have a market for pollution to permit, the right to permit, but you got to buy that right. So that was one approach used that's really helped. If you go now to Los Angeles, I won't say it's beautiful, there's still some pollution, but it's way better. I can see the mountains. Every day I can see the mountains. So there has been an impact on this.
So what starts suggesting everything is money. It's
That's true, but remember the total amount of pollution is controlled by the governments. The government says total, parts per million will be so much. Now, if somebody has more money, it doesn't mean that they can keep on buying permits, because if I'm selling, they have to buy it from me, not from the government. What is in the market is what's in the market. So you have a lot of money, you want to buy my permits? Sure, but I'm going to charge you heaven and earth, which increases the cost of your production, which decreases the demand for your product. So your revenues will go down. So you decide how much you want to pollute. So by imposing this cost upon you, it controls how much you're going to pollute. So that's the logic behind this market for pollution.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Sadanand, I would like to ask you a question. We would like to know from you how you saved the life of an unborn child through the impossible surgery that you had done.
Sorry, so from this exciting topic of tariffs and pollution, we go to something dull. There are defects that some babies have, where when the baby is being formed, it's an amazing miracle, the formation of life. You have two cells that meet, and then they start reproducing, they multiply, and if you think about it, it's just, it's mind-boggling, because these cells then know what they should be doing. How? Who tells them? One cell says, hey, you go, you become the finger. And then there must be someone who's guiding these things. You go to this part of the brain, that is, you belong, you cell, your job is going to be the speech center of the brain. Your job is going to be the movement of the finger in the brain. There must be somebody who does all these things, right? So the formation of the brain is guided by various genes. And last Saturday, we had a movie in IIT called Sonic the Hedgehog. So that's the name of that gene. It's called Sonic the Hedgehog. That gene has some effect on how things are formed in your body, right? It's just amazing, the miracle, how many things can go wrong. And within about 25 days from the last date of ovulation, your brain and spinal cord, the central nervous system, closes. It has finished forming, and it's like a tube that closes. Now remember, that's not a long time, because for the last day of ovulation, you don't even know that you're pregnant, although you may be, until you miss a period, and then you say, hey, let me wait, maybe I'm stressed and maybe there's some error, maybe etc. And by the time you realize, no, I really have, maybe I am pregnant, and then you go and get pregnancy tests done, and there are false negatives, and then you wait a little bit more, and when your level of certain hormones are high enough, your test will be, the false negative rate is pretty low, and you say, yes, I am really pregnant. The false positive rate is also low, and so the test is reliable. But by that time, your brain and spinal cord are formed in that fetus. So then the doctor tells you, yeah, you're pregnant, good news, ma'am, and for the dad, and so now let me put you on all these vitamins and these things for the baby. Well, the baby's central nervous system is already formed. And at that time, you didn't know you were pregnant, so you were not having proper diet, you were all stressed out, maybe you had a couple of illnesses and you took some medications for that hurt the baby. So we don't know how and when this happens. In most of the planned, it's best if pregnancies are planned. And when you want to plan them, couple of months before you think you're going to conceive, you should start taking the vitamins, because the baby could happen. So if you don't, errors can happen. And within those 25 days, there could be an error. And one of the errors that happen is in the spinal cord, which is, the brain sort of closes in the form of a tube, and so does the spinal cord, which is part of the brain and extension of the brain. That doesn't close fully. And when it doesn't close fully, the spinal cord tissue, the neural tissue, can come out of the body. And so there are some children who have that, where the spinal cord tissue comes out. Now when that happens, the insult to the neural tissue comes from various sources, but predominantly from the pH, that means the acidity of the amniotic fluid. So the very fluid that nurtures a baby can hurt the tissue, neural tissue that has come out. And then these children, when they're born, with that, we know, 18, 20 weeks, we get an ultrasound, we suspect something, and then you can get MRI these days for the fetus. But you get enough evidence that something is wrong. Maybe you will start doing amniocentesis, but blood tests these days instead of that. But enough evidence that, yes, there is a spinal cord defect. So the baby is born, and then we used to operate on the baby. Usually within about 2 to 3 days, we should do the surgery on the baby and try to put the neural tissue back inside and close the tube that nature didn't close. Okay? But there has been enough damage done to the neural tissue, and the babies end up being paraplegic, maybe not having bowel or bladder control, and they get, because the spinal fluid keeps coming out of that hole in the back, along with the spinal cord pieces, the neural tissue, spinal fluid comes out sometimes, and in a way, your brain sort of gets sucked down, and it's pulled down, sometimes below the skull, the base of the skull. And so there are a lot of defects that happen. It's not just related to the spinal cord, but it can happen in the brain, it can happen in the covering of the brain. And so these children have a lot of problems after they're born. But we do the best we can to sustain life, which is close this defect, otherwise they'll get infection and meningitis and they will pass away. But they have these defects. Now there was a big trial that was done about the possibility of what if we were to do this surgery in utero. Because the insult to the neural tissue is happening in utero. Once you know that there is a problem, whenever you think it is safe, do the surgery. Close the tube. Put the neural tissue inside so the amniotic fluid cannot hit it or insult it anymore or damage it. So they did this trial, and what was done was, they would wait till about 26 weeks of gestation and do a cesarean section. There's an anesthesiologist for the mother, there's an anesthesiologist for the baby, there's a pediatric ICU doctor present there, there's an adult ICU doctor present there, there is a surgeon, there is anesthesia guys, mother anesthesia guys. I mean, there is just a whole big team. And at about 26 weeks, they do a cesarean section and pull the baby out. The umbilical cord is still there, placenta is still in the mother, and they have to be very careful about the type of anesthesia, the type of pain medications they can give. The fetus can go into a coma if the dosings are very different. And then, of course, the amniotic fluid, something needs to go back. So you bring the baby out, flip the baby over, baby still has the umbilical cord of the mother, you do the surgery, put the spinal cord back, close the tube and the defect, close the skin, and then put this little guy back inside. And close the cesarean section, you keep the mother in the hospital. You give her some tocolytics or medications that will prevent her from going into labor, and she carries on. And full term in some cases, and at full term, so from 26 weeks to close to 39, 40 weeks, and then the baby is born with the cesarean section. Baby is born, and now there is no defect. The spinal cord was not injured by the amniotic fluid. And more remarkably, the amniotic fluid has some good things too. It's not just meant there to injure neural tissue, but there are some chemicals. There's a thing called hyaluronic acid. There's so many other components of the amniotic fluid that actually heals and helps in healing. And these children are born, and the scar is very minimal, and this good healing. In some cases, when you're in a hurry, when there is during the surgery, there is a problem with the baby, and then you try to close very quickly, or even just put some tissue that will heal on top and then send the baby back inside the womb, inside the uterus. So in those cases, healing can happen, but still it's pretty good. And the baby comes out, and usually, because there has been no injury or minimal injury to the neural tissue, the baby is kicking around, and bladder and bowel function may be okay. And most importantly, one of the very, very common problem with children who are born with these defects is buildup of fluid in the brain that needs to be drained out. And in the traditional time, we used to, baby comes out, we do the surgery afterwards, after the baby's born, and then we wait. There's a small percentage of, not a small, quite a bit percentage of children who will end up needing something to be done about the fluid buildup. And so you need another surgery for that. And that surgery can have complications. And the device that you use to decompress and take that fluid out, and normally we have a catheter that goes from the brain into the abdomen, that can get infected, that can get blocked, that can get eroded, and skin can get eroded. There's so many things that can go wrong, and you need repeat surgeries. I mean, I did a study on about 166 children born with this defect, and from their birth to adulthood, I was following them. I think the maximum was a child who, by the time she reached her adulthood, had about 121 surgeries. And so it's a very difficult life that hopefully this type of fetal surgery can avoid. And the incidence of this pressure buildup of fluid is much less in these children who get surgery in utero. So that's the idea.
Thank you so much, sir. Audience, he deserves a big applause.
I have one question, please. Sir.
Yes, please.
And here. And both of you, I just want to Dr. Venkatraman. See, you said about breaking the barrier, and compartmentalized approach should be avoided. People should, from all disciplines, should come together. As a society, our Indian society, we are totally compartmentalized. In some sections, some problem, the other section of people don't care. So in transport, there is a problem, we don't care, other sections. So public should unite together, and cumulative effort of public will bring results. See, now the society is existing as a separate unity. Dr. ARULALAN, he has done massive amount of work in meteorological, but all the data goes to politicians. They set aside the results. Unless government make a policy, we can never succeed. And lot of, I tell you another thing, SCBA, social cost benefit analysis. You do some action, there is a private cost, there is an external cost. See, all these things will be borne by the public, and government should come to the help. See, we should bring the people together, then only we can succeed. And Dr. Venkatraman subject, see, you are dealing with like software and hardware. You are doing a lot of work. In that case, allied minds are coming together, easy to achieve. We can bring the mind together. And one thing I say, artificial intelligence is something great. And our cumulative intelligence, greater than the greatest. If people come together, we can find solution for all the problems. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, so we have a last question. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello. Dr. Venkatraman, this you have done in cross-discipline degrees, like economist, mechanic, engineering, and the medical. It is quite impressive. What is your advice to the new younger generation to consider the cross degree from engineering, economics, or any other discipline? What is your advice?
For him, he's also done multiple things.
Yeah, of course, because the students are hesitate to take the cross degree disciplines. Yeah,
okay. As I was mentioning to you, the program that is there in IIT Madras, the Department of Medical Sciences and Technology, already has that embedded into their curriculum. where there is a cross-disciplinary work going on and courses going on. But in general, I would say, you know, one of my teachers, I took a course in graduate school in quantum mechanics, and the teacher told me very clearly that the prerequisite for anything that you do or study or learn or work on is an innate sense of curiosity. So you do something not because it's going to get you money or a job or, you know, I want to do this because I want to save the world. Save the world will happen because that's our innate nature. But first, are you curious about what you're doing? Do you really want to learn what you're doing? And if you are curious, then you have to ask yourself, how determined are you to continue on that path? So when you change from one field to another, believe me, there are more naysayers than those who say, yes, you're doing the right thing, go ahead. So you will find all arguments to say why you should not make the change. Either it's, you know, it's difficult, it's your age, you have done this or that, or, you know, there's a safety net over here. There are lots of arguments that say why you should not do the cross-discipline thing. And if you really want to surmount all those obstacles to continue to do cross-disciplinary work, then you must feel compelled, strong enough. That compulsion has to be strong enough to go against the current and do it. So I'm not saying that the path is easy. I'm not saying the path is impossible. But I think the path can be surmounted and difficulties can be overcome, provided the engine that is driving this is those the two aspects that are very important in that engine. One is, let all your work be guided by curiosity, and let all your work be guided by an innate need to serve humanity. That is really in fact, my first title for this talk was Service to Man is Service to God. Your first duty as a human being on this earth is to take care of your compatriots, of other human beings. And let all your work, let all your equations, let everything that you do reflect on that goal. The money will come. It's not so important. You know, I was just telling Dr. Kamachi, Tamil Nadu, we had Ramanujam, Pavam, he was sitting in a clerk's desk and writing, and in his note, it's so sad. He was saying, I have a wife and a family to support, and I need food, I need money for that food. But what he has done has brought about enormous changes in this world and has benefited humanity. Let our goals be that rather than anything else. I don't mean to put down corporations or people who have a goal to make money. More power to them, and that's fine. But behind every action we take, if that action is guided by the need to help humanity, then that becomes a meaningful action. And that's when, going across discipline, any problem can be surmounted.
Excuse me, sir. Hello.
Yes.
இல்லை அந்த பனிக்கூடம் உடையாமல் எப்படி அந்த ஆப்ரேஷன் பண்ணீங்க?
To you, sir.
Here.
Sorry, திருப்பியும் கேளுங்க.
இல்லை இந்த பனிக்கூடம் உடையாமல் எப்படி அந்த ஆப்ரேஷன் பண்ணீங்க?
சார், நான் தமிழ்காரன் தான். எங்கள் அம்மா பனிக்குழனாக்க பிளசண்டா ஓகே சொல். யா. ஸோ நீங்கள் யூட்ரஸை கட் you will have to cut the uterus, just like a cesarean section. And what they do is they take the baby out, so the fluid comes out. Then there's the fluid or the content theriyum namlukku, and the body is capable of producing that fluid. So then you put back whatever you can in terms of the content that you can create, and the fluid thirupiyum potutelnaka, then the body will produce the rest of the fluid and the baby goes back.
But still the baby will be alive only.
Alive, yeah. Placenta varadu. Placenta edukka mudiyadu. Placenta is attached to the uterine wall, And there is a major, apart from just the veins and arteries, there's a lot of circulation that is going on between the mother and the child through the placenta. So it's very vascular. So baby will be fine. You just take it out and do this thing and put the baby back. So umbilical cordum irukku, placentaum irukku ulla ammata.
Another thing, உங்கள் இன்ஜினியரிங் நாலேஜையும் டாக்டர் அந்த மெடிசனையும் வந்து அப்ளை பண்ணி ஏதாச்சும் அந்த ரெண்டுத்தினுடைய கம்பெனி என்ன ஆச்சு?
அதை விற்றுட்டேன், அந்த கம்பெனியை விற்றுட்டேன். யூஸ்வலி இந்த ஸ்டார்ட் அப்ஸ் எல்லாம் நீங்கள் ஆரம்பிச்சுட்டு அப்புறம் ஒரு பெரிய பெரிய ஷார்க் வந்து உங்களை சாப்பிட்ரும். ஸோ but you just sell it off and then they absorb and do whatever they want to do with it. And நடுவில் கோவிட் வேறு வந்துருத்து. So actually நாங்கள் பண்ணிந்து was a way by which companies can but individuals can use the app அந்த காலத்தில் by which you can have telemedicine done right on your phone and doctor can visit you. So நீங்கள் வந்து it was like an Uber, exactly like an Uber app for doctors to call a doctor. So நீங்கள் பேஷண்ட்னாக்கா உங்களுக்கு அந்த ஊபர் ஆப் இருக்கும். ராத்திரி 2 மணிக்கு குழந்தை அழும், பயங்கர ஃபீவர் இருந்ததுனாக்கா யூ லுக் இன் யுவர் ஊபர் ஆப் அண்ட் சே யூ வாண்ட் அ பீடியாட்ரிஷியன். அது காமிக்கும் எங்கெங்கெல்லாம் பீடியாட்ரிஷியன் ஊபர் கார் காமிக்கிறது அந்த மாதிரி. அண்ட் தென் அவனை பற்றி எழுதியிருக்கும், அவனுக்கு எவ்வளோ ரேட்டிங்னு அது வேறு எழுதியிருக்கும், ஜஸ்ட் லைக் ஊபர் அந்த ரேட்டிங்லாம் கூட இருக்கும். அண்ட் யூ கேன் டிசைட், ஐ திங்க் ஐ ஃபீல் கம்ஃபர்டபுள். And அவங்ககிட்ட ஒரு மெசேஜ் அனுப்பிச்சுன்னா they'll grab that message, they can drive over to you, they'll bill you for the driving, whatever is the charges that they have. And there's also, in fact we had that before Apple incorporated it on their phone. We had the equivalent of SOS on the phone for both parties, for the doctor as well as for the patient. So if you're not comfortable with the doctor, வீட்டில் வந்து சரியா இல்லைனாக்கா, or the doctor is not comfortable with the patient, or the family of the patient, if there's any threat, anybody feels threatened, the tuck and press panna, it will immediately send messages to all the predetermined people that you have. So அந்த மாதிரி எல்லாம் இருந்துட்டு அந்த ஆப்ஸில். And it gives the doctor also freedom, just like Uber. இப்போ நான் ஒரு டாக்டர்னாக்கா இங்கேயே உட்காந்து என்னோட கிளினிக்கில் ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இதே இடத்துல மவுண்ட் ரோட்டில் போய் என்னோடய ஆஃபீஸில் இருக்கிறதுக்கு பதிலாக நான் எங்கே வேணால் இருக்கலாம். I just turn on my meter. நான் எங்கே வேணால் இருந்தாக்கா பேஷண்ட்ஸ் போய் பார்க்கலாம்னா. So and if I close the meter off, then that means I can it's my vacation. The office costs are less because I don't have to have a secretary, I don't have to have this and that, I just go straight to the patient. And billing that was part of the software, and in those days I had electronic medical record and transcription already embedded in the app. So everything was there in the app, making life much easier. அதுக்கப்புறம் கோவிட் வந்தது, telehealth became very popular, and so this was something that governments wanted. So அந்த மாதிரி its evolution was different, but I think the goal for me was the mother who wakes up at 2 a.m. with 2 kids, one kid who's terribly sick, and she has to go to the emergency room. The husband is working night duty. அவள் இன்னொரு குழந்தையும் தூக்கிண்டு எமர்ஜென்சி ரூமுக்கு போய் அங்கே ஒரு 10 மணி நேரம் வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு, இட்ஸ் டெரிபிள். தட்ஸ் நாட் ஹெல்த் கேர். இன்ஃபேக்ட் தேர் இஸ் அ சேயிங், ஹெல்த் கேர் denied, health care delayed. And any time health care is delayed, it's the same as denying health care. So timely health care deliver alenaka, it is not good enough. That's not how our society should be. So அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு அம்மாவோட பிக்சர் என் கண்ணில் இருந்தது, which I needed to do something about. So இந்த ஆப் வந்ததுனாக்கா, that mom doesn't have to worry, she'll be at home and she'll call the pediatrician, he'll come home. And you know what? The congestion in the emergency room is less. Casualty la congestion குறைச்சலாக இருக்கும். ஸோ அவள் பேஷண்ட்ஸை சீக்கிரம் பார்ப்பா. எனக்கு இந்த மாதிரி பேஷண்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் டைரெக்ட்லி டாக்டர் வந்து பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கா. ஸோ இட்ஸ் குட் ஃபார் த ஹெல்த் கேர் சிஸ்டம். It's good for other patients who had a heart attack. He doesn't have to wait in the emergency room. And இந்த அம்மாக்கு நல்லது, குழந்தைக்கு நல்லது. So a lot of healthcare system could benefit, people could benefit. Remember Pareto optimality chonnene. So everybody benefits from this. That was my goal, not really the money involved in it.
Nice.
Thank you, sir. With this, we come to an end of the question answer session. And now it is felicitation time. May I call upon Dr. S. Kamakshi, Chief Librarian and Information Officer of ACL, to felicitate both our speakers with a memento.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Dr. S. Kamakshi will deliver the vote of thanks for the event.
On behalf of the Directorate of Public Library, Anna Centenary Library and the entire team, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished speakers, Dr. Venkatraman Sadanand and Dr. ARULALAN, for sharing their invaluable insights and expertise with us today. Dr. Sadanand, your remarkable journey from being an engineer to becoming a pediatric neurosurgeon is truly inspiring. Your passion for serving humanity and making a positive impact on people's lives is contagious. Dr. ARULALAN, your contributions to the field of neurology are invaluable, and your ability to communicate complex ideas in a simple and engaging manner is impressive. We are very grateful for the time and effort you both took to prepare, deliver your talks. Your presence are here today has enriched our understanding and broadened our perspectives. We would also like to thank the Anna Centenary Library team and volunteers and staff and students, those who are worked tirelessly and behind the scenes to make this event success. Once again, thank you, Dr. Sadanand and Dr. ARULALAN, for your thought-provoking talks, and also thanks to Tamil Nadu Science Forum to collaborate this event as a very successful one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Let us all raise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you all.